Jerry is currently fucked. He dropped the IB in a heartbeat if his mom wasn't an imminent threat. In the beginning, he took up the IB because he wanted to have a life after high school. But after hearing from his seniors that the IB was very difficult, he begins to panic over his classes and procrastinates on all his IAs. Slowly, he loses grip on everything, his studies, social life, and even sleep. Jerry ends up concluding that the IB is so difficult, a pain, and wonders to what extent life is suffering. In rage, he then tells incoming IB first years to save their souls as the IB is very, very hard. Bjorn had heard the same from his seniors but planned efficiently. He went into the IB rather calmly, preparing himself for whatever came his way. In the end, all the things his seniors said about the IB being scary faded away. TOK was too hard? He somewhat liked it, to use IB rubric friendly terms. EE was too much? Well, it was actually a breeze. The teachers are too strict? Well, they're actually somewhat supportive, except for the IB coordinator. Turns out the IB wasn't everything people said it was, and he had a great 2 years up until he got a good 43 score and his hard-earned diploma. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Joaquin Revello. I got a perfect 45 in the IB, and I'm currently a student at the UPenn Wharton and Engineering School here in the US. So you probably heard already by your seniors, by your teachers, by Reddit, by whoever, that the IB is difficult. And basically the answer is yes, the IB is difficult. However, it is still doable and manageable and can actually become much easier than most people think with the correct set of strategies. The real difficulty here is that lack of preparation and that lack of thoroughly understanding how to spend your time most effectively during the IB that makes it difficult. I mean, just look at Jerry, who quickly jumped to conclusions, compared to Bjorn, who actually took his time and carefully planned out his IB journey. In fact, I recently read this Reddit post that reads that the IB is not hard and thinking it is letting you down. And I think some of the points this person brings up is completely valid. In fact, some of the main criticism that I hear about the IB from my students is not actually about the IB itself. It's basically just about the fact that you have a bad school. So if that's the case, it's a much more manageable problem because you can go up to your teachers and try to at least find some type of middle ground, rather than hopelessly trying to complain to the IB about how difficult it is and then spiraling yourself out of control. Now, if we pay our attention towards the actual IB difficulty, understand that two different people can have two completely different perceptions of the difficulty. I would argue that your mind is extremely powerful in shaping your IB experience. It's your mind that creates those invisible barriers, and it's ultimately your mind that determines how difficult your time in the IB will be. For example, let's say you make two people work out, one person who's never worked out and the other person who's been working out consistently. Obviously, if we give two people the exact same weight and tell them to do, let's say, bicep curls or bench or whatever, they're going to have different levels of struggle, different levels of perceived difficulty while doing the exact same obstacles. Hence, it is very similar. In fact, one of the main reasons why I found the IB to not be that difficult is because I essentially put myself in the fire before I got into the IB. I made myself do difficult things, such as through physical exercise or through one of the companies that I was running at the time. And when you become stronger, it appears less difficult. So there's a few mindset shifts and action points that I want you to do throughout this video. The first of which is I want you to find a way to put your body and put your mind and put yourself through some level of difficulty. And one of the easiest ways to do this is simply by exercising. And the main reason why I like exercising is because it kills multiple birds with one stone. It gives you more energy, it makes you look good, you feel so much better. And most importantly, for the third one, it primes your brain by having gone through some level of difficulty, some level of challenge, which makes a lot of the other challenge you do in the IB and in your life much simpler in comparison. I mean, compare Jerry and Bjorn, where one of them actually didn't really find it that difficult because they were already accustomed to that level of challenging, while the other one nearly gave up. And which brings me on to the next mindset shift, that the IB is actually much simpler than most people think. There's a very interesting story about John Wooden who mastered this principle right here, where he had a very simple framework for success and he mastered the fundamentals with his basketball team that allowed him to win multiple tournaments. In fact, one of the things he did was that on the first day back after having won the previous, I believe it's the NCAA tournament, he had all of his basketball players do the following two exercises. All right, take off his shoes and put it back on. That's literally the only thing they did for like an hour or so. They literally just took off their shoes and then put it back on. And basically what that allowed the basketball players to do was understand how important the fundamentals are, right? Because just think of it this way. If your shoe for whatever reason breaks, or you get a splinter, or you feel sore around your ankle, that is actually going to cost you a lot during the game because you're not going to play at your best ability and you're going to stumble. So by mastering those fundamentals, not only are you consistently teaching your teammates that you can run throughout the court for a considerable amount of time, but you're also instilling to them the following lesson, that just because something is a fundamental fundamental does not mean that it should be discarded. All right. One of the ways I like to view fundamentals is the following. A fundamental simply means high frequency. It simply means that it appears multiple times. And I actually learned this while doing jujitsu, where we spend a lot of time learning the fundamental moves. And my coach actually made that point very clear. So I want you to spend some time and identify what are those fundamentals for you, and then spend your time honing in on those fundamental skills. Okay. For example, one of the fundamentals in the IB is having a good and effective study routine. If your study routine is trash, notice how that will impact your entire IB career, right? The fact that it's a fundamental means that it appears at a high frequency. It appears in every single concept. It appears in basically every single day at school and every single subject. The ability to effectively learn content and study that is one of the most important skills. It is a fundamental skill. So rather than ignoring that and trying to look for something else and then blaming that the IB is very difficult, learn to understand those skills, learn to master those skills, and the IB will become relatively easier in comparison. I also want you to remember the importance of saying no, because there's a lot of things that come up, maybe that are not IB related, but just come up in your life that can lure you away from the IB. And this is where most students fall into a trap, because they try to do everything. They try to do all of these different things. In many cases, it inflates their life and it just makes their overall existence very difficult. So I urge you right now, what are a few things that you can stop saying yes to and you can actually eliminate from your strategies? What are those things? And one of the best places to start when it comes to thinking this is just ask yourself why you're doing the things that you're doing. Okay, why are you in that club? Why are you working on this project? Why are you, for example, why are you studying right now? Is it for an exam? Is it for an IA? If you really start to ask why, you'll start to realize that there's a lot of things that shouldn't be there. And the next question to ask is, what problem is this solving? So for example, look at one of the clubs that you're in and ask yourself, what problem is this solving? Maybe it's solving one of my extracurriculars that I'm going to submit to a university. All right, excellent. That is an accurate problem. Then you can ask yourself, are there more effective ways to solve this problem? Because remember, a lot of the extracurriculars that you end up sending to universities, like I focused a lot on how it would appear on paper. For example, if it would appear on paper that one of the extracurriculars I'm working on, if it would appear on paper that, let's say I made $10,000 for an example, that should be one of my only focuses, on making $10,000. The other parts of the business are essential, yes, but if that is for whatever reason not reflected, if the university admission counselor doesn't see that, if it's not on the 10 things in the Common App, it really doesn't matter. So stop spending all of your time trying to identify and optimize for patterns that don't matter, and instead focus in on those that do. Focus in on those patterns that actually solve problems and say no to everything else. And that strategy alone will make the IB much easier because you have the time to actually focus in on the task that matters. And if you want to find a way by which to do this, congratulations, you just found yourself an Easter egg. Go ahead into the link down below at grizzlyelite.com/Easter egg and type in the following code. The code right now is GrizzlyRoar28. So that's Grizzly Roar with a capital G and a capital R all together, no space, GrizzlyRoar28. Type that into the link down below and you'll learn about some disproportionate leverage strategies that you need to free yourself up time and make the IB easier. And then finally, after you learn to say no, really learn how to maximize your efficiency, all right? Because if you're able to become more efficient, if it's easier for you to reach states of flow and cut out any other distractions, anything else that will impede that, if you're able to just reach state of flow and get significantly more done, that'll free up time for you to spend working on other parts of your life, which gives you that freedom, gives you that flexibility, and ultimately makes the entire process much easier. And on top of that, I want you to actually single task, meaning every single time you sit down to do work, focus in on only one thing at a time rather than trying to do many. The biggest mistake most people fall into, especially in the IB, is they try to multitask. And this is especially true during class time. In fact, I had a friend, let's call him Jeff, where the only thing he did during class and in the IB was pay attention in class. He was not on his phone. He was not doing anything else. He was not talking with his friends. He was not multitasking on WhatsApp or playing Angry Birds or something like that. He was instead focused in on only one thing, which was the teacher, which was learning and understanding the concept and reaching that state of flow. And because of that, he basically spent very little time outside of school studying, and he was still able to get a pretty decent mark. So again, the question of how much time do I put in versus the output, right? That leverage, that disproportionate leverage comes into play right there. So keep that in mind moving forward. So ultimately, this is a little bit of a shorter video, but there's tons of videos on my channel for you to read more about this. If the IB was very, very difficult, okay, no one would be doing it, because especially in today's mental health snowflake generation, basically no one wants to do very difficult work. So with that in mind, understand that the IB is much more manageable than you might think, and understand that if you are willing to do the difficult work, if you're willing to go above and beyond, if you're willing to push yourself to grow and understand that by growing and becoming better, I have access to all these skills, I have access to this mental resiliency that I can apply in basically any discipline and any aspect of your life. If you go for the IB with the intention to grow from that perspective, you're not going to find the IB that difficult. In fact, you're going to find it excellent and an opportunity to grow, even if none of the stuff you learn in the IB can be applied into your own life. All right, so keep that in mind. If you have any questions at all, shoot me a DM at Instagram at Joaquin_Revello, and go follow me there as well. I have tons of lifestyle, tons of vlogs, tons of me walking around my university that I'm going to be posting this year. So go check that out. And until next time, stay productive and stay grizzly. I'll see you in the next video.